Now let's take a look at our morph with point command. We'll create a new file, generic template, okay, so in our shape ribbon tab we have our morph commands. We've taken a look at these morph commands before, our flex morphing commands. Okay, now we're going to move on to our morph with point command. Okay, we have several others under here. We'll just be looking at our morph with point command. Okay, so let's first create a few shapes that we can morph. I'm going to place a block at the origin, the global origin. Change my entity filter to all so it snaps in there. Second point also be there. We'll have 10 by 10 by 10. That's fine. Confirm the operation. Let's move it. The shape will move in the direction y-axis 10 millimeters. Confirm. Okay, now we'll place a cylinder, center, snap it to the origin. Okay, the radius 5 millimeters, length let's do 20 millimeters. Confirm. Again, we'll move this one first along the negative y axis, distance of 10, then 10 along the negative z direction. Okay, let's copy these two shapes along the x axis, distance of 20 each, and we'll do 2 instances like we have set up already. Confirm. Okay, so we have some shapes here that we can play around with and morph. Okay, we come into our morph with point command, left click. Okay, the morph with point, this transforms shapes by warping face geometry at points that we specify, hence morph with point. Okay, the modifications are not isolated to a single face but can work across edges whilst maintaining the integrity of the solid shape. Okay, but we can also morph 3D curves. Okay, so let's in fact draw a 3D curve here. We'll use a 3-point curve. Let's constrain it to our top plane. Go into a top view. Here we'll just draw a curve along here like this. Confirm the operation. Okay, come back into our morph with point command. Okay, so you can see at the top here we have 6 different methods that we can morph with points. Okay, they all have the same settings tab at the bottom here, but a few different defining methods at the top. Okay, we'll start off with our translate along direction morph with point method. Okay, so our geometry is that we want to morph. Okay, like I said, we can morph shapes, faces, curves. We're going to morph the face, top face of this block first of all. Pick the geometry. We then pick a point. Okay, this is the point that we're morphing. Okay, we can pick more than one point. I'll start off by picking a single point. We then specify the direction that we want to morph in. Okay, hence translate along direction. Let's say we want to morph in the z axis, the positive z direction. Okay, so that's up. Okay, we can then specify the distance we want to morph. When we increase the distance, let's change our step size to 1 millimeter. You'll then see the effect that the morph has. Okay, so we're morphing this face. Let's just morph it a distance of 3. Okay, now we can take a look at our settings field. We can see our minimize surface data. We've seen this before in other operations. Our flex morph commands. Okay, so this reduces the number of control points, which will result in less calculation time. So we will usually want to keep this checked, minimize surface data. Okay, then we have 2 tabs here, move and lock. Let's take a look at the move tab first. Okay, we have an image of what our different fields have an effect on. the influence. Okay, this is the radius of influence. The smaller the number here, the more localized the change will be. As you can see, when we decrease the number, the morph is more localized to our picked point. Okay, increase the number, we're spreading it out. Okay, then we have these rigid, bulge, slope options. We can play around with these, we can see the effect in this graphic here. Okay, finally we have a flat and a peak option. This specifies whether the surface at the newly morphed point up here is rounded, so flat, or if it's sharp, okay, a peak. You can see more clearly if we make our rigidity smaller. Okay, so if peak comes to a point, flat is rounded. Okay, we'll confirm the operation. We'll take a look at the lock next. Okay, before we do that, we can still pick more points. Okay, you can see the effect that has. Okay, so that is our morph point along a direction. Let's do the same again, but this time we'll pick, instead of the top face, we'll pick the entire shape. Okay, we'll still pick a point on the top face. Direction, we'll still keep in the Z, positive Z direction. Distance, again we'll have 3. Okay, but this time the geometry is the shape, not the face. So if we increase the influence, you can see we're morphing the entire shape. Okay, so other faces on the shape, not just the top face. Like so. And this is where we can use our locking tab. Okay, so the lock defines the stationary geometry that we do not want to move or morph. Okay, we can lock in points, edges, curves, faces, or datums. Okay, so we come into the stationary field, and this is where we pick those points, edges, curves, faces, or datums that we want to remain stationary. So let's say we pick this face here. We want that face to remain stationary. We then again have influence, options, rigid, bulge, slope, flat, and peak. Okay, but you can see that whenever we change in our influence now in the move tab, it's not having an effect on this face. We've locked it in. Okay. Okay, now let's take a look at our same morphine option, but this time we'll pick our curve, our 3D curve. Okay, the point, pick points along the curve that we want to morph. Direction, let's say the Z-axis again. You can then specify the distance. Okay, we're morphing a curve like we morphed our shapes. Again, the influence is will have the same effects as with the shapes and faces. Okay, so that is our morphed curve. Okay, next let's take a look at our translate to point option. Okay, so instead of along a direction, we'll be translating or morphing our geometry from a point to point. Okay, so let's pick this cylinder, our second cylinder. We'll pick a point, let's say on the top face here. Then we select a 2 point. Let's say we want it to be to the top of this curve. Okay, you can see the morph taking place there. If we increase our influence, okay, we can morph the whole shape like this. We might want to lock in our lower face so that one doesn't move. Yeah, you can play around now with the options to get the morph that you were wanting. Okay, I'm just messing around here. Okay, so that is our morph point to point. Next, let's look at our translate along path. Okay, so this time our geometry, a point on our geometry will be morphed along a path. Okay, so let's create a path first of all. Wireframe, 3-point curve. Let's align it to the side plane, datum plane. Come around this side. Let's pick a point, say the center of the cylinder, and then we'll create a curve. Confirm the operation. Okay, so there is our path. We'll come in to our morph command, morph with point. We are translating along path. Our geometry, let's pick the top face of this cylinder. The point, why not pick the center point here, approximately the path that we just created. Okay, we are morphing this face along that path. You can see we're getting a quite a nice result here. Okay, we can change the influence. Some other options don't seem to have much of an effect here. Change some other options. This is our morph along a path. Okay, so that's a pretty interesting shape there. Okay, next up, let's morph. We morph around an axis. Pick our geometry. Let's pick the shape. Point. Let's pick a point on this face. Top face. The axis. Okay, we want to maybe morph about a center axis. We'll right click. Plane axis. Pick this top face. Say the Z axis. Angle. Increase the angle. Maybe we want to lock in our underface. Here we're forming our rotate morph. Like so. Okay, finally we have two more morphing commands. They're both scale morphing commands. Okay, our first one is scaling about a point. Our second is a non-uniform scale about a point. Okay, so our geometry, let's pick our last cylinder as a shape. Our point, pick a point that we want to scale. Okay, we want to morph the center. Okay, that point we picked out here, I want to pick that point on the face. Let's unpick all. Okay, that point I want to pick on the face. The center, we'll right click. Let's do center of curvature. This is the point about which we are scaling. Here we can then scale. Play around with our influences. Our other options. Confirm the operation. And there we have that scale, that morph scale. Finally, we have our variable, non-uniform morph. Let's pick our final block as a shape. Pick the point. Now we're picking a plane to scale about instead of a point to scale about. So let's pick this plane. Then we can specify the scale in the X, Y and Z directions, and then play around with our influence and other options. Okay, so these are our different options, different methods within the morph with point morphing command. Okay, and you can see the large variation of effects that these can have. Okay, so we can produce some pretty interesting results using our morph with point command.